That's great. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, no worries.
Right.
It's 1 o'clock and we're sort of at 70 attendees, so whenever you're ready, Sue, really, I think.
Yeah, right. Hi, everybody. We're going to get this started now. We want to start punctually because we've got a lot in store today. So thanks for everybody for joining and welcome. This is the 5th webinar in a series, and it's part of the National Education Programme Tackling Cholesterol Together. It's brought to you by a partnership between the Accelerated Access Collaborative, the AHSN Network, and Heart UK, the cholesterol charity. All programme content and bookings can be found in the Heart UK pages, including e-learning modules which are ready for completion already. I'm Sue Critchley. I'm Senior Programme Manager for the Academic Health Science Network, and I'm managing this education programme with Heart UK, and it supports across the wider national lipids and FH programme. Okay, the campaign we've been talking about in previous sessions called Cholesterol Now is now launched, and that's also hosted on Heart UK's website. There's more videos there with patient-centred conversations, and they're really excellent, so I do encourage you to go and have a look at those, and they include a clinician-patient interaction for diet, one for familial hypercholesterolemia and one for suspected statin intolerance, and the page also links you through to a range of other resources. So I'll just do a brief run through of the housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded and it will be made available in the Heart UK Tackling Cholesterol Together pages. There will be time to stop and ask questions at the end of each section. Feel free to ask questions or upvote questions in the chat function when it becomes available. There will not be opportunity just informal chat, but it will just be through the Q&A. Any questions that we're not able to cover today, it can be addressed following the event. We've actually been running interactive clinics following our webinars. We have not scheduled one of these specifically for this theme, but if people are really keen to have a deeper conversation about behavioural change in the context of diet or behavioural change as a single topic, then we will organise that. But I ask you to make a request to the feedback survey tomorrow and put that in the free text answer. And then we'll just do a quick run through of the agenda today. So first of all, you're hearing from me. Sam Howard, who I'm delighted has joined us today, will talk to us about what we mean by behaviour change, person-centred care and dietary behaviour change. And then role plays will be led by Sam and her colleague Linda Wrigley, who are from Behaviour Change Training. And then Sam will capture our thoughts and lead us then into how motivational interviewing fits in with behavioural change. And then we'll move on to the next steps, and there is some other great stuff in store for you. So the learning objectives of today's webinar are to consider the principles and the transferable skills of behavioural change approaches in the context of diet. We're going to highlight the NHS long-term plan and NICE and think about our own application of person-centred care and behavioural approaches, and that's regardless of our base profession. This is applicable to any professional group. And then after watching role play, we're going to discuss the content and identify key phrases and cues which we may use, and then we'll see how motivational interviewing then fits in with behavioural change approaches. And before we introduce our fantastic speakers, we just want to look again at the burden of cardiovascular disease, because really that is what's bringing us here today. We're here to improve the whole cardiovascular disease unmet need. And while this programme is specifically looking at cholesterol, treatment of the patient as a whole and taking a combined approach to AF, blood pressure and cholesterol is really important. So just to remind ourselves of some of those key facts and what the long-term plan is aiming to achieve. That we want to improve early detection of and treatment of CVD, an ambitious aim to prevent 150,000 heart attack, strokes and dementia cases, and to expand access to genetic testing for identification of FH and increase the cases found to at least 25% in 5 years. And also, again, just the key fact here that we're focusing on cholesterol management, better cholesterol management. For every 1 millimole per litre reduction in LDL-C, there is a 23% reduction in major vascular events. So that is all from me for now. I'm really delighted to just hand over now to Lynn Garton, who's the dietetic advisor to Heart UK. She's going to tell us a little bit more about our speakers today. So over to you, Lynn.
Thanks, Sue, and I'm thrilled to be involved in this webinar, because when it comes to providing dietary advice to patients, it's not just about knowing what dietary advice to give, but also how to help patients make the necessary changes to be able to follow this advice. So I'm thrilled to introduce Sam Howard, who's a registered dietitian and director of behaviour change training. BCT is a training company founded in 1998 and provides skill-based training courses for healthcare professionals working in all settings. They offer both modular programs as well as bespoke programs, and further information and training dates can be found on their website, bctonline.co.uk. So during this webinar, also Sam will be joined by her colleague, Dr. Linda Wrigley, also a registered dietitian, to show us what a behavioural approach should look like in practice. So over to you, Sam.
Thank you, Lynn, for that introduction, and thank you all for having me here today. So my remit is quite broad, and there's quite a lot to cover. So we are really scratching the surface in the time we've got together today. I'm just going to start by thinking about behaviour change itself. What do we mean by behaviour change? If I could have the next slide, please. We're thinking about any change in behaviour. So this doesn't have to be a health-related change. A behaviour change is something that we do every day, or something we think about doing every day. And I sometimes think we have to think about ourselves to come up with the best examples. So, for example, my alarm goes off at 6:30 every morning. And sometimes I think, oh, maybe I'll just hit the snooze button. But actually, what I've tried to do recently is get up at 6:30 and go and take my dogs for a walk, because I know that I will feel better for doing that. And I'm having this internal conversation with myself on a daily basis of, do I really want to do this? Is this really the best thing for me? I'm sure you can all relate to that in your own lifestyle, whether that's how you're going to do your hair today, what you're going to wear today, what you're going to eat for breakfast, if you're going to have breakfast at all. You know, am I going to catch the bus or drive my car to work? These are all conversations that are happening in everyday life. And so it's normal. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to normalize change. Change is normal. And COVID, I think this last couple of years, has seen huge amounts of behavior change in people, and has actually made us realize that sometimes change can be a good thing. It can be hard, but it can really be a good thing. And so we want to try and normalize change with our patients. Today, we're really going to be focusing on dietary behaviour change. If I could have the next slide, please. And on this slide, you'll see there's a whole list of dietary behaviour changes that we all talk to our patients with. You know, when we're thinking about lipid lowering, high cholesterol, any one of us in any of our roles might recommend some dietary behaviour change to sort of help manage cholesterol levels. This information is also freely available on the internet. You know, there's some fantastic resources out there, Heart UK, British Heart Foundation, Public Health England. There's loads of really good resources for dietary information. But when I work with patients as a dietitian, and those of you that are dietitians in the audience will relate to me, hopefully, most patients don't lack information. They know that the information is there. Most people actually know what they should be doing to improve their health. What they struggle with is how to do it. And so our role as a healthcare practitioner is not just providing information, it's thinking about supporting our patients to make those changes real for them. How does that change impact on their life? How can we integrate change into their lives and make it sustainable for them? And that's sort of where we're moving towards when we start thinking now about what is patient-centered care. And I think the next slide is a poll. So it requires a little bit of audience participation to sort of help me capture where we're at with our understanding of patient-centered care or person-centered care. So hopefully you can see the three options on the screen, and we're going to launch the polling now. And what I'd like you to do is to choose an option. So is person-centered care, is it one, we let our patients do all the talking and decide what they would like to discuss? Do we listen to our patients and work with them to help them come up with their own solutions? Or do we plan our sessions in advance and ensure we pass on all the information we have prepared? Just give everyone a couple of minutes to respond to that, and then we'll have a look at where everybody's at. Okay, have we got any results coming in? I can't see anything on my screen.
We're at 83% have voted, so it's not been up for a minute yet. So if we want to leave it at 30 seconds or so, then we can come back to the
Thank
results.
you. We'll probably see where we're at. Give us a feel.
Yeah, okay, give me a second.
Thank you.
It's pretty conclusive, but you should be able to see that now.
Lovely, thank you very much for sharing that. So we can see 96% of people think that person-centered care is when we listen to our patients and work with them to help them come up with their own solutions. Thank you for sharing that. If we could sort of skip on to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm really pleased that you all chose option 2 on the poll, and I would agree with you. Person-centered care is about listening to our patients, really finding out, and this extract is taken from the NHS long-term plan, but I really like it. What we want to do is find out what matters to someone, what's important to that person, not just what is the matter with someone. So what we're trying to differentiate is between the clinical condition and the person themselves, because, you know, the person is very different to a disease. And what impact does that disease or that condition have on that person's life? We want to give people choice in their care, and we want to engage patients to make their own decisions about their own health and well-being. So this quote's from the NHS long-term plan, and if we could skip on to the next slide, please. I've got a couple of quotes which are specifically looking at what is a behavioural approach. I know the majority of you chose option 2, so it sounds like you're all very much there with your understanding. These are a couple of quotes that we use when we're training to try and help explain it to people. A behavioural approach is not really a thing. It's not something we do to a person. It's not a specific skill that we learn. We describe a behavioural approach as an umbrella term. So it encompasses a wide range of tools and strategies. Some of them are familiar to us, some of them less so. But what underpins it, what's the spine of the umbrella, as we call it, is the spirit and the skills of the approach. It's the way that we are with people. It's a way of being with people. That's the bit that we can't necessarily teach. That's what makes you who you are as a practitioner. And if you can shine through to your patient as being that really sort of that real person-centered approach, if you can show your patient that you're listening to them, that you're genuinely interested in what they've got to say, that you want to support them to make the right choices, then that behavior that you're exhibiting as a practitioner will lead to behavior change in your client or your patient. So we describe it as client-centered, and we describe it as directive. We use the term sometimes a guiding style. So if you think of a continuum, on one end of the continuum, you've got very sort of directive medicine, where you sort of see somebody and they say, right, you've got to take this medicine at this time of day, and there's no sort of negotiation. That's how it is. And then you have the more sort of counseling style, which is a following, where the practitioner follows the patient. What we want to try and be with a guiding style is somewhere in the middle. And it's very skillful to listen and sometimes feel like you're sitting on your hands and not giving advice straight away. You're only giving advice when it's invited and where it's needed. And finding that point where you can give the right amount of advice to help the patient come up with their own solutions, problem solving, as you'll see on that second quote, that is the skill. It's the timing, and it's learning sometimes to sit on your hands and let the patient come up with their own solutions rather than just sort of telling them what to do. On the next slide, there's a couple of definitions from NICE. I'm not going to read them out to you, but they're there on the slide, and you can sort of look at them. The point I want to make with this is that every one of us is a behavior change practitioner. You don't go on a course and become a behavior change practitioner. We already are, because we're already working with patients that are making lifestyle changes on a daily basis in order to manage their health. And we can learn techniques or skills or strategies, whatever you want to call it. You can learn those and you can refine those, but what you can't change is that underpinning spirit, that compassion, that empathy that comes with being a good helping practitioner. So I find it very difficult to define what a behavioural approach is. And although there are definitions out there, it is still sometimes considered to be quite woolly. There are lots and lots of different techniques out there. In fact, there's a behavior change taxonomy is Susan Mickey and her colleagues devised this taxonomy in 2013, and there's actually 93 different behavioral change techniques out there. So we're not really defining it to one or two things. It's a general approach, a general way of being. And we generally find that demonstrating it, seeing it in action, is perhaps the best way to illustrate what this approach means to practice. So we very bravely volunteered ourselves to do some live role play today. First thing I would say is please be kind. As you all know, as practitioners, it's hard for people to watch you. The other thing I'd say is we are not experts in lipid lowering advice. We are really demonstrating a way of working with patients. So please don't critique the clinical aspects of the case. So my colleague Linda has very kindly agreed to step in and play a patient. So Linda is going to be a 59-year-old lady who has been referred to our dietetic service for dietary advice, and these are her blood results. She's postmenopausal, overweight with a BMI of 29, but otherwise is fit and healthy and no family history of heart disease. So we're going to start off doing a short role play, and then I'm going to have a very quick debrief with Linda, and then we'll have another role play. So just bear with us with that. So Linda, I'm getting into character now.
Okay, I'm ready.
So hi there, is it Linda?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Morning.
hi Linda, hi. My name's Sam. I'm calling you from the GP surgery. I've just been given your blood results and they've asked me to arrange this appointment to talk them through with you.
Okay.
So I can see that your cholesterol level is 7. We're aiming for it to be about 5, so that's a bit on the high side. And I've also noticed that your BMI is a little bit high at the moment. Do you want to sort of, what are you thinking about that?
Well, I'm actually all right with my weight. I worked really hard at my weight. So I was closer to 15 stone. I think I'm about 12 I was this morning. So I'm...
So you know that managing weight is important for your health, and you know that actually being overweight, it does put you at higher risk of heart problems later in life. So it's good to sort of be looking at ways to bring your weight down.
Yeah, I have done that. I've worked quite hard.
So what about your cholesterol then? Have you made any changes to your diet recently?
Well, I've made some changes in terms of trying to reduce how much I eat with losing the weight. So yeah,
maybe we should have a little look at what you're eating, and then we can have a look at which foods have cholesterol in, which ones are going to impact your blood cholesterol levels, and then I can, give you some pointers.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to start me off with breakfast then? What would you normally have for breakfast?
So I usually have cereal or toast for breakfast with a drink, tea or coffee.
Yeah. And what sort of milk would you have with that?
Semi-skimmed, I think it is.
Right. Yeah. And what about after that?
Well, I'll have a sandwich at lunchtime, and then we tend to have our main meal in the evening.
Okay, so we know that the foods that are going to affect your cholesterol the most are the ones that are high in saturated fats. So that's foods like meat and pies, pastries, bakery products, dairy products, that kind of thing. So we need to really be looking at taking those out of your diet and putting in some other things. So some, plenty of fruits and vegetables, oily fish. How does that sound?
Well, I've done quite a lot of that already, because I cut loads of cakes and biscuits and meat and pies and all of, I cut really, I mean, I didn't eat much anyway of those, but I've really cut them down to try to lose the weight. So sort of,
yeah, with your cholesterol levels being high, we need to really have another look and see if there's anything else that we can do.
Yeah, but there comes a point where the changes are just, I need to live my life. And
right.
Yeah,
I'm going to pause it there, Linda, because I get the feeling that you're being quite a tricky patient there.
Sorry.
So this is a very staged example. So Linda, would you like to give us a little bit of feedback of what that was like as a patient?
So as a patient, it felt, so I wasn't quite sure what was happening. And I felt like I wasn't really being listened to. It was all about making changes. And I felt as if I was trying to tell you that I'd made quite a lot of changes, which I was really quite pleased about. And hence the comment at the end with, I'm just not in the place to make much more change anymore, because what I eat, I think, is quite boring. now.
So if I've got that right, it doesn't sound like the practitioner was really listening to you or paying attention to the work and the changes that you'd already made,
No.
and taking that into account.
No,
So should we
they
have another?
acknowledged it, but they didn't yeah, take it any further.
Should we have another go? See if we can try again. So we're going to go back in. Hi there, is it Linda Wrigley?
It is, yeah. Hello.
Hi Linda, my name's Sam. I'm one of the dietitians that works for the doctor's surgery. We've got an appointment now. Is you expecting this call?
Yes, yeah, I was expecting, they did tell me that they'd made an appointment for somebody to talk to me today.
Lovely. Linda, just before we make a start, can I just confirm a few details with you?
Yeah.
So I've got here that your name's Linda Wrigley. I've been calling you Linda. Are you happy with me calling you Linda?
Yeah, that's okay, that's fine.
Lovely, thank you very much. And can you confirm your date of birth for me, please?
Yeah, it's the 1st of July, 1960.
Lovely, thank you. And I always ask for a contact number if that's all right, just in case the IT fails and I have to give you a call just to finish anything off.
Yeah, that's okay. Can I give you the landline? My mobile's not brilliant at the moment. So it's 01909 730 248.
Lovely, thanks Linda. I've made a note of that. And as I say, hopefully I won't need it. We have around 15 minutes for this appointment today. Is that all right with you time-wise?
Yeah, that's fine.
Lovely, you're not dashing off anywhere.
No, I wasn't sure how long it would last. So yeah, that's good.
So Linda, as I said, my name's Sam. I'm the dietitian from the doctor's surgery. Feel free to call me Sam. And it was the doctors have shared some blood results with me and asked me to arrange this appointment. I wonder what you know about the blood results and the appointment today.
Well, not a lot. So I did a well woman check that had come about. I mean, I'm supposed to have had it a couple of years ago, but with the COVID stuff and everything, I didn't. So I just went.
Delayed.
Yeah, went to the surgery. I'm not quite sure who I saw. It could have been a healthcare assistant or somebody like that. And they did blood pressure and weight, and they took some blood and everything else. And they said they'd be in touch with an appointment to go back through it. They didn't say who would. So not to contact them.
So you had the check, you had all the blood tests and other checks, but you've not had any of the results yet,
No.
if I've got that right.
No.
Would you be happy for me to share the results with you, Linda, that I've got?
Yeah, I'd like to know.
So there are quite a few different readings, Linda, and what I'll do is I'll ask the receptionist after today to send you a copy of them, so you don't need to worry about remembering everything. The one that I wanted to talk to you about was your cholesterol level.
Okay.
So your cholesterol level is raised. It's come back as 7, and normally we'd like to keep it below 5. I've also noticed that you've got slightly raised BMI or body mass index, which is what we use to look at weight. Just wondered what your thoughts on that might be.
Okay, well, I had no idea what my cholesterol would be because I don't think I've ever had it tested. So, you know, I mean, 7 doesn't sound a high number to me, but it is above 5. So you do hear 5 talked about. So yeah, 7's 5. The weight, I mean, I do know what my weight is because I weighed myself this morning. So I know I'm 12 stone 12, but I've been working really hard with my weight. I used to weigh around sort of 15 stone about 18 months ago. So I've worked really hard trying to lose the weight. I mean, they've given me a target with Weight Watchers of about 10 stone, 10 and a half. But that seems a little bit far, a little bit hard to achieve, if I'm honest. I feel much better at 12 than I did at 15. So I'm quite happy with my weight now.
So if I've got it right so far, Linda, what you've said there is that these results have really come a bit out of the blue. You weren't expecting your cholesterol levels to be raised. You've had no sort of symptoms or anything.
No.
And actually, although your weight is a little bit higher than perhaps the target, as it were, you have worked really hard over the last 18 months or so to bring your weight down from 15 stone. And actually you're feeling so much better than you were before.
Yeah, I am.
And you mentioned that they gave you a target of about 10 and a half stone, but you're not sure that that's realistic.
Well, I don't think I've been 10 stone since I was probably a teenager, since I stopped growing. So it's always been, yeah. I sort of think now at my age I might start to look a bit saggy, which might look worse. And
so you'd be conscious almost if you had too much spare skin.
yeah, absolutely. So
it's finding that balance, isn't it, between losing enough weight to be healthy, but actually,
I mean, I feel healthy now. I feel so much better. I can do more. I'm not out of breath walking. I've even done a bit of that couch to 5K and got more active.
Doing more activity in order to help you lose the weight and manage the weight.
Yeah, I have.
So perhaps we could have a think about maintaining weight rather than, thinking about drastic changes to weight, but perhaps maintaining a steady weight, maybe losing a little bit, but doing it in a very gradual way would be more realistic for you rather than sort of setting big goals.
I've made loads of changes, and so I'm not sure how much more I can actually take on board.
Well, thank you for sort of giving that some thought, Linda. How about sort of cholesterol and thinking about food and cholesterol? What's your knowledge around where cholesterol might come from in your food? What might impact on that?
Well, I mean, I've heard about healthy eating, haven't we all? Look at labels. So I've heard about cholesterol in eggs and shellfish, so I tend not to have those at all. I watch the fat intake a bit, just look at the label and try not to pick the red things.
So you've got some knowledge there of food and which foods might impact on cholesterol. Would it be all right, Linda, if I just share a little bit of information with you about cholesterol and which foods might impact on your cholesterol levels?
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. So I'm picking up that you've started to cut down on some of the foods that you think are high in cholesterol, or you had done already. So things like shellfish and eggs. But you're right, they do contain some cholesterol, but what we've actually found from looking at the research is that the foods that impact our cholesterol levels the most are those that are high in a type of fat called saturated fat. And that fat comes predominantly from animal sources. So by that I mean kind of meats and meat products, dairy products, those sorts of foods that use butter or lard as an ingredient, so some bakery products as well. Wondering what your thoughts on that might be.
Well, I've cut a lot of, I'm not sure I could cut much out now, but we don't have much pastry, and we've just about cut meat out because the portion sizes in order to lose the weight are much smaller. So I'm thinking now, I mean, I do, from obviously I have cheese and milk and that. I'm not sure I could really cut all of those out as well.
So you've already cut out quite a lot of things which would be classed as sort of foods that are high in saturated fat, and you're wondering, oh, I'm not sure I can make any more changes. Right. I'm wondering then maybe whether we need to think about things that we could perhaps add into your diet that might actually help to manage your cholesterol levels. Would it be all right if I share some of those with you?
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been thinking about is fish, because you mentioned that you'd cook quite a lot of meat and things out of your diet, and I'm wondering what you might have replaced that with, and because oily fish is particularly a very good thing to have in your diet to look after your heart. It contains some oils which are really protective of the heart. I'm wondering whether there's a way we could think about putting that in rather than just keep taking things out of your diet.
Yeah, well, so you mean things like the salmon? Because when you see it, it's got quite a lot of oil when you cook it. I mean, I'd not been having that because I thought it was too fatty. So although
so
I
you
couldn't
were cutting that out.
yeah.
So you're right, there are some oils in salmon and other oily fish, but those are a type of oil that's actually good for the heart. So although we don't want vast amounts because of the calories and wanting to manage your weight, small amounts added in might actually be helpful to help with your heart. And what might you replace if you were to put oily fish in? Is there anything that you might take out?
Well, I suppose it would give me a different option for something to have at lunchtime. It would be different, wouldn't it? Whereas at the moment, I've probably got. I mean, I'm having a lot of cheese.
So you're currently having a lot of cheese.
Yeah, because I mean, as I say, I got really fed up with having chicken salad sandwich, chicken salads, and everything tastes. It's chicken. So, but by having cheese, I've got blue cheeses, and I've got red cheeses, and I've got cheddar cheese, and I've got brie. So I've got lots of different tastes.
So you like cheese because there's a lot of variety there with cheese, and you were getting a bit fed up of having the plain chicken sandwiches, which sound like they're very similar each day. So if we were to put some oily fish in, that might give you a bit more variety with your sandwiches, might reduce cheese, which is actually one of those foods that is quite high in saturated fat, and give you a boost of these protective oils. So it sounds like a bit of a double whammy there in terms of you looking at your overall nutrition.
So it would give me something else to have, wouldn't it? So when I'm taking lunch to work, I maybe could have I mean, I can't have anything on toast, but I could maybe have that when I'm at home. And the days that I work, I maybe could take the cheese sandwich or an egg sandwich.
You're really starting to think now about how this could work practically for you, which days you might do different things. And what I'd encourage you to do, Linda, is actually to start making a note, write some of these suggestions down, because you're coming up with some really brilliant ideas there of how you can practically make this work for you and your sort of lifestyle. We're coming towards the end of our time together now. So do you want to just sort of pick up on what might be the first thing that you're going to change?
Well, I suppose really maybe knowing now, did you say I could have some shellfish as well? So that might be trying to have that. I mean, I don't like white fish, so maybe trying to have the oily fish back into my diet might be one of the things I could have instead of having quite so much cheese. Give me a bit more of an alternative.
So yeah, you're coming up with some suggestions there, alternatives to cheese.
So things like would it be mackerel and pilchards and so
all of those are oily fish. And what we'll do, Linda, is I'll send you some additional written information for you to have a look through.
Okay.
In your own time to just sort of reinforce what we've talked through today. I'm going to pause it there in the interest of time. Come out of character for a minute. I realise what I forgot to do before we started the role play is actually ask anyone if they had any comments or questions. So I'll hand over to Lynn to share any thoughts either from the panelists or the audience if there are any.
Yeah, well, first of all, can I just say congratulations. So you're both fantastic. And I certainly could see a difference in both scenarios. And I think the things that stood out for me were the asking of the questions and asking permission for, rather than just sort of going straight into it, but also the reflective listening. I very much saw, Sam, how you were repeating and rephrasing what Linda had said, and then Linda was then able to expand upon it. And I don't know, is that part of the process, would you say?
So thanks, Lynn. Yeah, I would say the biggest part of working in a behavioural way, working in a person-centered way, is listening and reflecting. We call it listen and reflect, listen and reflect. If you're not sure what to do, listen and reflect. And what we find is that when people hear their own words said back to them, that's really a good way to reinforce what someone is, that you've heard what they're saying, and you're really taking that on board.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think we've had a question in, said, so a great example of how to use behavioural change techniques. Could we also get some tips and advice for using this approach for patients who are resistant to making changes?
Yes, we could. So when we do our work on courses, we always do sort of what I would call more straightforward examples first, and then we would look at some of the more challenging situations, and that could be something, if we were to do another workshopy, we could look at doing some more challenging situations. One thing I would say though is, if you spend the time at the start of a consultation engaging your patient, spend the time getting to know your patient, building up that helping relationship, you tend to find you get less resistant patients.
Interesting.
That's what I would say from experience as a clinician, but also from working with others.
Excellent. And do you find that in some cases, some people actually, it may not be now is the right time to make the changes? Maybe they've got so many other things that's going on in their lives that actually they're just thinking about diet may not be the top of their priority. And how would you then sort of go about that?
Well, I think, sorry, Lynn, I think that leads us on really nicely to actually thinking about motivational interviewing, because that is where motivation comes in. It's in motivational interviewing, we're looking at the two constructs, importance and confidence. So is it important for that person at this moment in time? And that is really what we're exploring with motivational interviewing. Oh, my slides have popped up. That was
well, I think without further ado, we'll go into the motivational interviewing, Sam. And if there's any questions, or if anybody wants to sort of provide any thoughts, then please do so in the Q&A box, and then we can maybe look and address those at the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Lynn. So I've just got a few slides about motivational interviewing, and this is something that often comes up. How does a behavioural approach and motivational interviewing fit in? And if you remember at the start, we were talking about a behavioural approach being like an umbrella. Your spirit and skills are in the middle, and your tools and strategies are on the outside. And motivational interviewing is one of those tools or strategies. It's a specific conversation style, but it's about strengthening a person's own motivation. So it's what is already inside the person. We're drawing out that motivation that's within the person already, and then we're working with them to commit to change. Being motivated is not enough. They've got to actually have a plan. And part of what we work on when we work with individuals is helping them to create a personalized plan for them that is going to be realistic, and something that they can stick to. A lot of motivational interviewing is based on that listening, reflecting, because when people hear themselves say something, they're much more likely to stick to it. If we could go to the next slide, please. We're talking about motivational interviewing as a dance, not a wrestle. And one of the key aspects of motivational interviewing is the fact that it's a partnership. We really need to work with somebody. We need to be in tune with them. We need to be leading them, but if you're leading them and you're not on the same page, you're going to be stepping on each other's toes, you're going to be tripping each other up. We really need to be working together to dance in an effective way. So if there's no partnership, there's no dance. And on the next slide, you'll see the other aspects of the motivational interviewing spirit. So when we talk about partnership, we're talking about collaboration. We're not doing things to someone, we're doing things for them or with them. We're acknowledging that the patient is the expert about themselves and they should be doing at least half of the talking. So that's a really good way of just tracking, am I getting this right? Am I working in a person-centered way? Am I doing motivational interviewing right? The key thing is it should be a 50-50 relationship, a partnership. We should also be accepting the person for who they are. And this work is based on the original work by Carl Rogers, looking at unconditional positive regard. So the key aspects here about acceptance, we talk about autonomy, the patient's right to not change, and accepting that that is their right not to change. Sometimes reflecting that back to the patient can be really powerful. We also include here things like empathy, the way that we really put ourselves in the patient's shoes. What is it that they're going through? And relate to them, acknowledging that they're having a tough time or that this is a really difficult thing to change. And affirmations. So one of the key things about motivational interviewing is giving affirmations. So this comes under acceptance. An affirmation is acknowledging the strengths that somebody has. So some other behavioral approaches look at identifying weaknesses and that's sort of like negative feedback, whereas motivational interviewing focuses on people's strengths, acknowledging them, labeling them, and really giving that can really help people improve their motivation and their confidence. We're also looking at compassion, and compassion should be part of everyone who is a healthcare practitioner should be compassionate. We want to promote people's welfare. We want to have your heart in the right place, which means really looking after the people that we're working with. And the final aspect of the motivational interviewing spirit is evocation. It's acknowledging that the motivation that we need in order to make changes is within that person. And our job as a healthcare practitioner is to evoke that change talk. Well, we call it change talk. We're evoking their internal desire to change, their internal wisdom about themselves and the ways that they can change. So for example, with Linda, she knew how many days a week she was sat at home working and how many days a week she needed to take a packed lunch, and therefore she needed to think about, how can I make this work for me? So our job as a practitioner is to evoke that conversation from our patients and strengthen their desire to change. And how do we do that? Well, the top skill, as we've already said, is listening and reflecting. Listen, reflect, to build motivation and support behaviour change. I think I'm going to hand over now to Sue to finish off.
You are indeed. That was excellent. I've learnt a lot from watching those role plays. Thank you. We wanted to do a roundup of the Q&A. And whilst we do that, leave this slide up for the participants to see where they can go next, which next steps they have, and whether or not they want to interact with you, Sam and Linda and your team for some more tailored learning. But there is one question which we didn't get to, which Christine Hart raised. Christine says that she recognises quite a large challenge in working with people who work shifts, in particular night shifts. And do you have any tips, please, to help with that?
Thank you, Christine. That's a really good question, and we know a lot of people that work shifts really struggle with change, or certainly dietary behaviour change. I have to say, I've had a recent example of this myself. I was working with a lady that was a train driver, and so she had some very irregular shift patterns. I think the approach with her was one of genuine curiosity. I really didn't know anything about being a train driver, how that worked. I didn't know whether she could eat while she was driving the train or whether she had to wait until it was a break time. So I just went in the way I would work with somebody, whatever their situation is, find out more, find out what is actually happening. When could they eat while they're working, or do they have to wait for breaks? Are there breaks at set times? What equipment do they have available? Do they have a microwave? Do they have a kettle? So it's really, for me, the more information you have, the more curious you can be about someone's life, the more tailored the advice can be. And in the end, this lady, you know, like most people, she worked it out for herself, and most of it comes down to planning. So she had to plan on a shift to take all the food she needed for that whole 12-hour shift with her. That was the only way she could do it. But she needed to come to that conclusion herself, and I really just supported her to work that out for herself.
Thanks, Sam. I think it was, as you were saying from the outset, actually, that patients are, they're not short of information, it's the how, and you facilitated that individual to see that for herself through using your behavioural change approaches. There are no other questions. Does anybody else want to ask anything at this moment? We'll quickly type it in because we do have a little bit of time. I've got a quick question, if you don't mind, Sam, just until some of the participants may think of something. I noticed that you also, as Linda, that you asked permission to share, and I thought that was a really neat tip for us all that we can all use. But then I also noticed that you followed it up with facts. So you asked to share factually based information, and once you had permission to share, you then shared it, and then you asked about Linda's understanding as well. Have I observed the right message here? Can you summarize that for us? Thank you.
Yeah, so that is a strategy that is used quite well, both in motivational interviewing and a behavioural approach more generally. We call it EPPE, so it's elicit, permission, provide, elicit. It's like a little roadmap, if you like. And it's one of the strategies that I have to say, as a dietitian, where we often are giving quite a lot of information, it really gives you a way of sort of chunking the information, giving a chunk of information, checking that the patient understands what you've said, that they're with you, and then asking permission to provide some more information if that's appropriate. It might not be. So that is definitely something I'd recommend. It's also, as I say, in all the motivational interviewing textbooks, as well as a sort of well-known approach for giving information.
Can I just add something there as well? So I see a slightly different client base with mine, and it would be very unusual for my clients not to have Googled everything. So using that technique and asking them, have you read up? Do you understand? They might say yes. And even if they say, yes, I know all about X, Y, and Z, I would then say, would you mind then if I told you how how I view it, because how we view it as a dietitian might be, or how we viewed it as a nurse or something, might be a little bit different to what they've read and how they come at it. So it's still using the same, asking permission, what do you know? Because there's nothing worse than sitting there and somebody rabbiting on and you're thinking, yeah, I've read all about this, I know all about this, because we all know a lot about healthy eating, or whatever the condition might be. But actually, you know, could you explain to me what you know about it? And then say, would you mind if I told you my approach? Because something, you might have something a little bit different. So asking that permission is really important. And even if they say, yeah, I know all about it, you can still think, I'm just gonna give a little bit more.
Linda, that's great. It's almost as if you're leveling that power differential as well. So you're asking from your perspective, and also sharing that a little bit of personal experience of your own, which is also good, isn't it? In these conversations, there's a couple more questions coming through. Stephen Anderton has asked, do you use any resources to support patients with planning?
Yes. Behaviour change training have got some of our own kind of resources that we've developed. We have a change plan that we've sort of developed as an organisation. There will be others out there in terms of, so it's based on, the change plan is based on SMART goals, but we have changed the language to make it less jargony. So it's sort of, what are you going to change? How are you going to do that? What support will you need with that? So it's very kind of structured. You can work through it with a patient, or you could even, if you didn't have time in your session to do that, you could even send it to a patient to do as homework, as it were. Because that process of really thinking through a plan in detail, we know is the key to long-term behaviour change.
Can I just say as well, because we've had a question which relates to this, in terms of the for lipid lowering and lipid management, Heart UK's ultimate cholesterol lowering plan brings in motivational interviewing and behaviour change, and I've put the link in to that on the question and answers page. So please do, if you want to get some more sort of structure on that, please visit the page.
Thank you. That was also one of the comments from the participants, wasn't it, as recommending it. So thank you for that. And then we have one more question before we wrap up. How do you ensure all your team are using the same approaches? You said that some of it's personality. So how can managers and colleagues make sure they're all on the same page?
That's a really good question.
Really good question.
Really good question. And that's, again, something we talk about a lot on our training courses. How do people integrate it back into practice? I would say the best thing you can do as a team would be, when you have a team meeting or some kind of supervision, to actually have a conversation about, well, which approaches do we want to embed in our practice as a team. There, as I said, some of the strategies you can teach. So for example, that the EPP, how we give information, that's the sort of thing that can be taught to, and a team could all do a workshop together and learn a way of delivering information in a more behavioral way. But as you say, some of it does come down to personality as well. And this is where compassion really comes in, and empathy, being a genuine practitioner. If you genuinely care about the work that you're doing and the people that you're working with, that will shine through. And I think that is the most important thing as a team, to all sort of share the same kind of ethos and spirit to the work that you're doing and the people that you're with. And they're not a number, they're a person, and they have a life. And I know it's hard, but they are. That's the important bit.
Oh, that's a great place to end, I think. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Linda. That was phenomenal. We will wrap up. Before everybody goes, I can see people are dropping away because it's lunchtime and people have got clinics and lists to go back to, but I really want to point out that there are some excellent e-learning resources on diet that are going to launch this month, and they will be available on the Tackling Cholesterol Together pages in Heart UK. I've seen the content. I can assure you it's going to be equally as good, if not better, than the previous e-learning modules that are already available to interact with. And there will be more of those as well in the new year. So there will be 5 components to the Diet e-learning, which is a superb offer, free to access for healthcare professionals. So that's everything from me. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Immense thanks again to Sam Howard and Linda Wrigley from Behavioural Change Training. That was absolutely fantastic. And we'll hope to see you all again for the next webinar soon.